Hello and welcome. I'm Jon Garlick, and I'm here with Lieutenant Falon Hurst, and this is Calhoun County's Most Wanted. Falon.
How you doing, John?
I'm doing well. Let's quick cut to the count. And we got what?
4 new ones this week. Brings us up to 5,134.
5,134 people. You guys have been busy.
We have.
And you had some stuff going on yesterday.
Yeah, this is right on the heels of a manhunt yesterday, a pretty big manhunt for some guys that had caused some ruckus up in Etowah County for us.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So they got in a pursuit, came down, decided to run off into some wooded area on the north side of Ohatchee. So we spent some time out there with them freezing in the woods while we were looking for them.
And there's a concern when they're freezing in the woods and looking for transportation, right?
There is, that maybe they'll check cars and find an unlocked car so that they can escape with a car with the keys left in it. And which this time of year, people don't like to go outside in the morning to a cold car, so they leave them running. So we ask that you don't do that, because criminals will take advantage of that. A lot of people lose their cars over the winter like that.
There you go. Keep your cars locked. Don't let them be running. And stay tuned with us. We're going to be back with a really cool guest this week on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to this week's edition of Calhoun County's Most Wanted. First half of our lineup brought to you this week by A1 Freedom Bail Bonding. A1 Freedom Bail Bonding, their phone number 256-236-7888. First up in our lineup this week, Richard Smith. Mr. Smith, last known to be living in Anniston, he's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. And take a look at Amanda Burris. Miss Burris, last known to be living in Alexandria. She's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance ×2 and use and possession of drug paraphernalia. We'd like you to meet Courtney Moss. Mr. Moss, last known to be living in Birmingham, he's wanted on a probation revocation for possession of a forged instrument. And this is Sky Martin. Mr. Martin, last known to be living in Carrollton, Georgia, he's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a forged instrument. And meet Elaine Gamble. Miss Gamble, last known to be living in Piedmont, she's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a forged instrument ×2. And this is Johnita Johnson. Miss Johnson, last known to be living in Anniston, she's wanted on a probation violation for obstruction of justice by using a false ID. And meet Stephanie Noel. Miss Noel, last known to be living in Oxford, she's wanted for probation violation on chemical endangerment of a child. And this is Jose Mariano. Mr. Mariano, last known to be living in Oxford, he's wanted for failure to appear in trafficking cocaine. And that's it for the first half of our lineup. Stay tuned for the second half later in the show. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in that half of the lineup that you might know where they are. And if you do, call the sheriff's office, call Crime Stoppers, ask for Falon Hurst. You call, he hauls. We are here with Tom and his other brother Tom. Tom Gilbert and Thom Cole. And you guys are here to talk about the German-Italian cemetery and some of the stuff at McClellan.
Yep. If you talk to a lot of Annistonians, a lot of them don't even know that we had a P.O.W. camp here during World War II. Mm-hmm. And there actually were 435,000 POWs that we brought to the United States from Germany, Italy, and Japan. And during the war, we had a large camp here. It was approximately 3,000 soldiers. All of them were German. However, there were 3 Italians that died elsewhere that were reinterred here. Okay. So our ceremony was started back when Fort McClellan was an active post. The military put a great deal of pomp and ceremony and dignity into an annual ceremony, which takes place in November. The Germans have a ceremony called Volkstrauertag, which is the National Day of Mourning in early November. The Italians have one in later November, which is their Armed Forces Day. So here in Anniston, they have chosen the 3rd Sunday of each November to recognize these deceased soldiers. In the cemetery, we have a total of 29 deceased soldiers. 26 are German, 3 are Italian. It's located right next to where the camp was. And the camp was very large. It was almost a square mile. It had 3 compounds. Each compound had 4 companies, and each company had about 250 soldiers. So it was a very large facility.
So are the buildings still around from that time?
Unfortunately, as soon as the war was over, these were all temporary buildings. They had the T's on them. So they were, as soon as the war was over, the last POWs left in 1946, and they were sent back home. As soon as the last one left, the Army went in and bulldozed everything except for the cemetery, of course. Okay. And that's all it remains.
And then, you know, the Officers Club up there has those murals.
Oh,
now,
yes.
Now, my
Yes.
understanding of the murals was that was done by the Italian
Well, they were-
POWs, or was it done by everybody?
It was primarily two German artists. One was a classically trained artist, and he had another artist which was still in training when he was drafted into the German Army. And they were both put to work in a very tough job in the Officers Club painting murals. And they're really quite beautiful, very classical paintings, although some people consider them somewhat disturbing because they were more Gothic, medieval type themes with you know, warriors fighting and blood and things like that. But for an Officers Club during the war, that was quite appropriate.
Well, they're very beautiful.
They are. They
And
definitely are.
What's the do you know the status of those murals in that Officers Club building?
Well, they've, as far as this last year, I don't know. We saw them last year, and they had been restored. Actually, they were restored before the post closed. So they were in beautiful shape. A new organization had taken over, a nonprofit, and they were protecting them. As far as what the status of Remington Hall is now, I do not know. I mean,
Well, so long as those are protected.
well, they're protected, but the building itself was built in 1936, so it's an older building, and it's basically been neglected very heavily since the post closed.
Yeah.
And it's a very expensive thing to maintain and upkeep, so it's a challenge.
Now, Falon, you're a historian by hobby.
By hobby, yeah. That's
So you had some interest in this cemetery as well.
Yeah, not long ago, a couple of months ago, I decided to look up a few of the guys to see if I could figure out how they passed when they were there. And I found a little bit of information, but I didn't dig too deeply. How did most of these people pass? Natural cause kind of diseases?
Well, we had the story about the cemetery here is in the South, we had many dozens of camps. They were called satellite camps, and there were several main camps, of which McClellan was one of them. So when they started closing, during the war, let me back up, during the war, only 4 soldiers died here. But when the other camps closed, they disinterred those bodies and reinterred them here.
Oh, okay.
So at McClellan, we had the first one, the camp opened in May of 1943. The POWs first arrived in July of 1943. Unfortunately, about 2 weeks later, the first death took place. It was a soldier by the name of Willie Wachter. He was working on a detail with a truck carrying rocks on Baines Gap. And the truck overturned and crushed him. So he was the very first one buried there. Then later we had a young soldier die of a heart attack here. And unfortunately, as the war started coming to an end, the news from Germany was bad. So the soldiers, they were hearing all the atrocities the Russians were taking place. And 2 soldiers from East Germany, what became East Germany, actually killed themselves before the war was over.
Wow.
So those 4 were buried here. And then as the war closed, others were brought here. So there's a total of 29 here now.
It's fascinating.
It is, yeah, it's an interesting cemetery, and I remember one day I just had this weird feeling to go by the cemetery. You know, and I did. I went by and I reflected there for a few minutes, and then the next day was the ceremony. I just heard about it like the following day. I was like, oh my God, I was there like the day before.
Very good.
It was an interesting, and that was an interesting feeling. I really had this compulsion to be there.
Well, the VA, the Veteran Administration, has now taken responsibility, and they are doing a fantastic job taking care of it to equal any U.S. cemetery as well. And for this ceremony this year, we have a couple of organizations that are helping out. One's American Legion. I'm with Post 111 here in Oxford, and they're helping out. They're providing some escorts and some assistance. The Instant Army Depot is helping to some degree. The Alabama Calhoun County Master Gardeners are providing the facility for inclement weather for us and other sources. They've been very helpful, and we're hoping to continue this since COVID is now over, we're hoping to continue this as an annual event.
Now, people come from Germany and Italy. They send a contingent, right?
Yes.
Well, actually, the Italians, they're working in Fort Rucker, the Italian that came up last year. But sometimes they've sent someone from the ambassador's office in Washington.
Nice.
But usually there's some contingent down in Fort Rucker. And we have the German contingent from Redstone Arsenal, where they've been working on the Patriot program.
Oh, okay.
So
they come down. Now, you've got some, I don't know if they're souvenirs or artifacts. They're artifacts. I
they're
guess.
artifacts,
Yeah.
yes, originals.
So tell us a little bit about what you got there.
Well, my history, like you, is I was drawn to the P.O.W. cemetery when I was a kid. I was rummaging through a house that was being torn down in my neighborhood. We went up in the attic and found autopsy reports. This guy was a doctor's home, and one of them was a soldier from the P.O.W. camp. And his last name was Cole, K-O-H-L, which would be the German spelling of my name. And he, unfortunately, is the one that killed himself on Christmas. So all through my life, I've just been interested in anything that's happened there. And I ran across a photograph on eBay of this German prisoner, and even gives his name on the back, Philly Kebib.
Was he a POW at our camp then?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Okay. And did he survive the war, or is he
I
buried?
do believe so. I think it came out of some other stuff of his that was not military related. So.
Okay.
And this is typical of what the Italians are given as their ID card whenever they're captured by the Americans. And it has his name, and they give him a new serial number.
Okay.
And that's what these Italians would have had at whatever camp they were in.
So this isn't necessarily one of the Italians that was at our camp?
No, it
Okay.
is not.
It's just a good example of that. Fascinating.
And several German letters
Oh, wow.
from Fort McClellan,
Okay.
and some are in better shape than others. And
Nice handwriting.
I have translated. It's basically all has to be very low key because the Germans are going to censor this before he gets it. So he can't talk about how bad the war's going or anything like that. So
Here I am. How are you
several
doing?
of those. Yeah.
And they were allowed to communicate readily with the family.
Okay. Holy cow. So what was a day in the life of a POW here at the camp kind of like?
Tom?
Okay. Well, the POWs were, of course, given activities. They were paid 8 cents a day if they were a prisoner. But if they worked, they received more money. It doesn't sound like much today, but back then, for a dime, you get a beer or or a drink or something, a little exchange, a little PX. So most of the Germans worked in different tasks around post. A lot of them, though, were selected by company to go out to work in the farms, in the cotton fields, and where our men were gone for the war. They replaced a lot of the labor that took place. So they were quite evident within the community as workers.
So they were around and very visible. Before we go to the break, we want to show, we have an example of what they wore. Tell us about that real quick.
This is the only surviving jacket of a prisoner at Fort McClellan's prison war camp. And this was rescued by Sam Walker out in Bynum. He ran a surplus store there.
Oh, yeah.
And he bought a big carton of rags. That's what he was going to use it for, rags. And after he opened it up and he saw what it was, and he was very historically.
So he knew what it was.
Yeah, he knew what it was, and he saved one.
Oh, wow.
And then I got it from him after he passed away, and that's the only one that we've ever been able to find.
Well, I'm glad you have it, and I'm glad he hung on to it. We really appreciate you guys coming and telling us about that. The service is this Sunday?
Yes, Sunday at 1:30
Sunday at 1:30 at the German-Italian Cemetery out at McClellan.
on Shipley Road.
On Shipley Road. Thank you guys for being with us today, and we want you guys to stay tuned. We've got the second half of the lineup and another guest with us here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted. And welcome to the second half of our lineup. The second half brought to you by Abe's Ace Bail Bonds. Abe's Ace Bail Bonds, their phone number 256-831-0074. First up in the second half of our lineup, Stella Hawkins. Miss Hawkins, last known to be living in Anniston. She's wanted for failure to appear on possession of a controlled substance. And meet Shedrick Robinson. Mr. Robinson, last known to be living in Anniston. He's wanted on a probation violation for certain persons forbidden to possess a firearm. And this is Darrell Pickett. Mr. Pickett, last known to be living in Lineville. He's wanted on a probation violation for possession of a controlled substance. And take a look at Stephanie Dustin. Miss Dustin, last known to be living in Helena. She's wanted for failure to appear on theft of property first. And meet DeAndre Avery. Mr. Avery, last known to be living in Gadsden, he's wanted on a probation violation for possession of marijuana first. And that's it for our lineup this week. If you have any information on these cases, please call Crime Stoppers. And that number, 1-833-251-7867. And welcome to the Crime Stoppers portion of our show, where we ask you to help us on the following cases. Between October 16th and November 1st, at the Thomas Cemetery on Charlie Penny Road in Piedmont, 2 solar lights and 2 flower pots were stolen from a grave. And on October 22nd, on Pettyway Drive in Alexandria, an orange 2020 Cushman Hauler UTV was stolen. The suspect is seen driving the UTV toward Highway 431 and appears to travel south on Valley Cub Drive. And on October 19th, a steel blower was taken off a lawn trailer on Laurel Trace in Anniston. 2 males in a white Chevy truck were seen removing the blower off the trailer. And between October 17th and October 18th, the residence on Harold Boozer Road in Jacksonville was burglarized. A child's basketball goal was busted, and inside of the residence had been rummaged through. A silver USSA baseball championship ring and $2,800 in cash were the only items found to be taken. And between October 6th and October 7th, a Dell computer, Acer computer, and miscellaneous cooking equipment were all taken from a storage building on Spring Branch Drive in Alexandria. And that's it for the Crime Stoppers cases. If you have any information on these cases, please call Crime Stoppers. That number, 1-833-251-7867. Welcome back. We hope you saw somebody in the second half of the lineup that you might know where they are. And if you do, give the Sheriff's Office, Crime Stoppers, or Falon Hurst a call. You call, they haul. We are here now with Kassidy Nance, Marketing Specialist for the McClellan Development Authority, right?
That is
the
correct.
MDA.
Yes, the MDA for short. It's a good day to talk about McClellan.
So just tell us briefly what the MDA is all about.
So the MDA is the sole organization responsible for redeveloping the land and property left over by the closure of Fort McClellan in 1999.
Very good. And so there's a plan to
Yes.
redevelop it. You're going to recruit all these corporate offices from Connecticut and New York because taxes are cheaper here, right?
Yes.
And they should be moving here. We're close to an airport in the interstate. Fallon's working on that, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Oh,
Yeah, Fallon.
absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, we need that.
Surprised you haven't
Yeah.
heard of me.
Yeah. But now, we were talking before, off camera, about the recreational stuff that's going on at McClellan, and a lot of people don't know what's out there, so tell us.
That's right, yes. We have had a huge uptick in recreational activity this year, and recreation amongst our commercial ventures and our industrial ventures is looking to be the next big thing for next year as well. So we have expanded our McClellan multi-use trails this year, and in May we opened Lake Yahoo Park as well. Both of these places are totally free for the public. Year-round, 7 days a week, they are open. You can come bike, hike, picnic, kayak, canoe. All you need is a $5 fishing permit to actually fish in the lake, but everything else is freely available.
So bring your own kayak.
Yes.
Bring your own horse.
Sure, yes.
And bring your own bicycle.
Bring your own bike as
So
well, yes.
are the bicycle trails and the hiking trails and the horse trails all the same trail?
They are not.
That's a good thing, 'cause
they do meet up.
Horses do things.
That's true, that's true. So they do actually get really close to each other, and we capitalized on that just recently in the Treadhoofalon.
The Treadhoofalon.
You said that perfectly, yes.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes,
Like
so
you've practiced.
the word will make a little bit more sense once you know what the event is all about, but basically we united 3 different recreational communities to work together in a team in a triathlon style race. So you can think of the tread part of Treadhoofalon as bike tires and the tread of shoes for the trail runners. And then hoof, of course, is obviously related to horses, and then a lawn triathlon. So it was a team.
You're running, biking, and horsing.
Yes, exactly. All together. So you're forced to work together instead of working against each other. They used part of the Backcountry Horsemen of America property, which is ran by the county, and then once the bike half started, they connected over onto our McClellan trails. So they used both.
Wow. We need to get in contact with the backcountry horse people. I bet
Yeah.
you they used to be part of our posse, right? The mounted posse?
Possibly. A little bit before my time.
But you do have to bring your own horse there as well.
Really?
Yes.
You know, these are great opportunities to monetize these events. You could have bike rentals. and horse rentals, trail riding for the horses,
Yeah.
and canoe and fishing pole rentals.
Yeah.
So if somebody was an entrepreneur like Falon and wanted to start these businesses, how would they go about doing that?
So you would start all of these inquiries at our office, the MDA office. So especially for the areas of recreation that we personally maintain, including Lake Yahoo Park and the McClellan Trails, which goes through us, you would come to our office and discuss that with us. Now, if you had an idea specifically for the horse trails, you would go to the BCHA and discuss that idea with them because the county owns all that property.
I got you.
Yes.
So tell our viewers where your office is on McClellan.
Yes, so we are located on Baines Gap Road at 4975. We are an old stone building that used to be the Shopette on the base. So that's how most people remember it. It's behind the medical mall.
And is General, oh shoot, I just lost his name, Robin, who's
Robin
in char-
Scott?
Yes, he's still with
We
us?
have a new director
We
now.
have a new director,
Yes.
okay.
It's a she. She is Julie Moss. She's the director for the past 4 years.
Oh, wow. See,
Yeah.
why did you tell me
out
that?
of the loop.
I just got hired in May, so I've only worked there around 6 months myself. And Lake Yahoo Park was my first big marketing project. Was
Well, we need
publishing
to
that.
We need to get Ms. Moss on the show after the new year.
Sure.
So when you get back to your office, you tell her
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
that she needs to contact me, and we'll get her on the show to talk about that.
I was
Yeah.
excited to hear about Lake Yahoo. What is the status of Lake Riley?
Well, Lake Riley is not totally on our radar right now. We are still working on updating Lake Yahoo. There is still some things that we want to do out there. We just got a contract to have someone come in and maintain it that is separate from our own maintenance crew. So they are maintaining it, making it sure it looks great and wonderful, but we'd love to add some type of pavilion out there, some type of boardwalk. We just paved the walking trail. So Riley is sitting over here in the corner of our mind while we get Lake Yahoo to a point where we really want it to be.
So if I had a horse, where would I bring it to access the trails?
So you would bring your horse to the entrance of the BCHA on Iron Mountain Road, and they have camping and horse stalls available there as well. And they're actually expanding their campsites for the general public.
Wow. And if I had a mountain bike and wanted to ride the mountain bike trails, where do I go for that?
We have 2 trailheads for our trails. One is at Lake Yahoo Park, so you can get in from the park, and one is on D.H. Stem Avenue, which is where the Anniston Soccer Complex is.
Okay. Well, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
So a lot of recreation going on out there.
Yes.
And so next year we'll get Julie on the show, maybe with you,
Yeah.
and we'll talk more about what else to do out there. And
Absolutely.
there's a website. What's the website to go to McClellan?
So we are exploremcclellan.com, and we are very active on our Facebook page. If you want to know all of the events that we have going on out here, check Facebook, McClellan Development Authority. We add everything as an event listing, so you can easily search and find us there.
Kassidy, thank you for being on the show with us. And everybody else, we'll be back. Oh, no, we no crazy criminal this week. So we will be back right after Thanksgiving here on Calhoun County's Most Wanted.